Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Rappahannock. My name is Marley Avant, and I will be your service leader this morning. One little thing, and that is to, if you haven't already, silence your cell phones, and also check through your program here to look for upcoming events and information that you might not get otherwise. And please do join us afterwards for refreshments and from good socialization, getting to know each other better. That's always one of my favorite parts. As the wheel of the year turns, we light this flame in honor of the season's deep mystery. When the veil between worlds grows thin, may it burn with gratitude for the bountiful gifts that we have received and that continue to share its light with us in love and in the endless circle of return. Halloween is only 5 days away. It's a time when spooky and scary things come to our front door. And we accept them. Instead of slamming the door, we offer them treats. We welcome them. Yes, you're nodding back there. And we give oohs and ahs over their scary things. It is a known and beloved celebration. Across the world and through time, humanity has looked into the eyes of the unknown, sometimes with trembling and trepidation, and sometimes with awe. A snake coiled in the grass, the silent patience of a spider weaving its web, the stranger who looks, believes, or loves differently than we do. What arises in our hearts when we encounter the unfamiliar? Is it anxiety or perhaps a glimmer of curiosity? Are these reactions learned or born from something deeper within us? This morning, Charlene will help us explore the space between scary and sacred, the mysterious place where the stories we have inherited meet the experience we are living right now. She will help us see how our conditioning shapes what we see, what we fear, and what we bless. May we find in this hour a space of courage, spacious enough to let perceptions soften, and vast enough to hold what is sacred in what seemed once to have been scary. Now it's with great pleasure that I introduce our very own Charlene Talcott. She is a lifelong nature lover and worked in environmental education and volunteer management in government and nonprofit roles. She is a founding member of the Virginia Master Naturalist program and a member of the Northern Neck chapter. She is a board member of the Virginia Association of Environmental Education and currently works as a project manager for nonprofits. In her spare time, she enjoys listening to and playing music, learning languages, and snuggling with her two big boy retrievers. I have to ask, what are their names?
Ernest and River.
Ernest and River, retrievers. Perfect. Charlene believes that the divine flows through all living things and connects us with nature. And now, scary and sacred, it's all about perspective by Charlene.
First, I guess this could be a joy and concern. This morning, I was still wordsmithing and trying to print out what I was going to say today, and a spider, a daddy long legs, is crawling on my computer. And probably no surprise, I believe a lot of animals can communicate with me. So he just kept stopping and looking and stopping and looking, and I acknowledged him. Well, I guess he figured that wasn't enough, or she, and started crawling closer to my mouse. It was on my mouse where I had to like touch him to click. And so kind of like gently brushed him away. And I think he was saying like, you must pay attention to me. So started climbing up my shirt and like brushed him off. And then all of a sudden he was on my face. And that was, so even things that I like, that was a little bit unnerving there to have him on my face, and he kind of quickly went across the room, but that was my odd thing that happened this morning. So I can't read with my glasses on. So my reading today is, why are we afraid? Some objects or fears are instinctual. The color red can mean danger. You may have seen vivid red ants in your yard. They're called velvet ants. They're not an ant at all, but a type of solitary wingless wasp. Their sting is potent, which is how they got their other name, cow killers. They warn us with that bright red color not to mess with them. So we instinctively see red most of the time, and we feel a little fear because that's actually in our brain. Falling is another reasonable instinctive fear. But other fears can come from experience. For example, as a ranger, I used to handle snakes for guests to touch. I had no fear until one day a black snake bit me. They don't have fangs or venom, so it just inflicted a pinch and a bruise. But since that day, I've been reluctant to pick up snakes. Some of our fear and biases come from conditioning. If you were taught as a child that certain animals, certain situations, and even certain people are dangerous or undesirable, then that becomes ingrained in your psyche. After all, your parents wouldn't lie to you, would they? Maybe the hardest to overcome is generational fear. Scientists have found we can have fear of something because our grandparents' grandparents had the interactions with something that gave them that fear. For example, in sparsely populated areas, our ancestors had to battle bears, wolves, snakes, and all kinds of dangerous animals. Those that learned to avoid them became the ones that survived and passed this fear gene to their offspring. This is still being studied, but it's an interesting path to explore. So as you'll find out in my talk, all of our fears, it's all about perception. So, it's the time of year we celebrate the scary side of life. Halloween displays include skeletons, ghosts, and ghouls. The typical animals are bats, owls, black cats, and spiders. It seems we like to be scared, but on our own terms, within our own set of boundaries. You may be surprised to hear that some of the things we consider spooky are held with high regard or even worshipped in other cultures. So let's start with the skeletons and ghosts. They remind us of death. They can't be stopped because they're already dead. No matter how much we threaten them with whatever weapons we may have available, there's nothing to prevent them from including us in their ranks. So in our culture, if we see anything undead, we must run away from them to protect ourselves. But in Mexico, they have Dia de Muertos, literally Day of the Dead. It's a day to celebrate deceased ancestors. Altars are built for loved ones with favorite foods and beverages and objects the deceased enjoyed in life. These same favorites are often left on graves. Candied skulls are given to children. Many people paint fanciful skulls on their face. In 2008, the tradition was inscribed in the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity by UNESCO. Marigolds are everywhere, as their bright colors and aroma are supposed to attract loved ones from the other realm. So in English, we call them marigolds. Mary's gold for the mother of Jesus. So that's one way of looking at it. But in Spanish, they're called flor de muerte, or death flowers. It's common to write humorous eulogies to living friends or situations called calavera. Hallmark has several, and here's one about death herself. It's called La Muerte. So that's death. La Muerte was feeling some pressure. Worry lines crisscrossed her bones. An email that came down from corporate was laden with menacing tones. Your numbers were down in September. October's not looking much better. Now the Day of the Dead is approaching, and people should be a lot deader. La Muerte sunk off to the bathroom, had a panic attack in the stall. That's where she worried herself to death, so she reached her goal after all. And the danse macabre was common in many European countries. So there were fanciful depictions of skeletons happily dancing their way to the grave, begging the observer to join them. And the pictures often had people of different ranks, from the Pope all the way down to peasants and nobles and other people. The earliest known depiction is from 1424, and there are many others on the walls of ancient churches in Europe. The French composer Camille Saint-Saëns wrote Danse Macabre, Opus 40 in 1875. And this was not so much a celebration of the dead, but a reminder that we all have to die someday and atone for our lives. But it was done in a happy way. And when I was the ages of 4 to 6, my father was stationed in Okinawa. Our street was on top of a funerary hill, and I'm sure this angered the local people. My young friends and I would hide and watch the funerals. We had to stay hidden because if we were seen, we were threatened and someone would start up the hill toward us. Of course, we ran away. But what I remember was that people wore white instead of black. This is the absence of color and is common in Asian cultures. Bells were rung to frighten the evil spirits away, but also to let the welcoming ones know that their loved one was coming. Large, bright fans and ribbons were displayed on the gravesite. These twisty decorations didn't interfere with a good person's spirit because they always could fly straight. But they supposedly confused the malevolent spirits that may come to steal the soul. So the evil spirits go all different directions and get tangled in things. So, bats are another symbol of Halloween. That could be because they just come out at twilight. Contrary to popular myth, bats don't get tangled in your hair. They may fly close to your head, but for a good reason. The carbon dioxide you breathe out attracts mosquitoes, and they're after the mosquitoes, and it doesn't matter if you're there or not. So I enjoy watching bats and their evening antics. Bats are even used as an insult. Saying someone has bats in the belfry or they're batty themselves means they're less intellectually stable. But in Chinese culture, finding bats in a building is good luck. The Mandarin, I'm going to mess this up, but the Mandarin word for bat is bian fu. Its homophone is fu, which means good luck. So bat and they sound the same. So bats are definitely good luck. And if you find 5 bats, that is extremely good luck. Snakes can create fear and even panic in many people. First, it's good to know that there's only 2 venomous snake species in the northern neck: timber rattlesnakes and copperheads. Both will only bite when they feel cornered and will not chase you to bite you. The timber rattlesnake is on the Gadsden flag, the one that says, "Don't tread on me." The colonists in the form of a snake are saying, "Don't provoke me and I won't bother you." People used to believe that if you cut a snake in half, if the pieces were reunited before the sun set, they would become alive again. So they would throw pieces of the snake in different directions so it couldn't get back together. And I understand some old farmers still do that. This was also depicted in the Unite or Die flag. The colonies were all represented by different pieces of the snake. And if they united in time, they could be strong and alive. But if they waited too long, they would perish. The snake's given a bad rap in Western culture because Genesis and the apple story. But in Hindu culture, Naga are semi-divine creatures that can transform between snake and human. They impart wisdom. The ability to shed the skin and become a new snake signifies transformation. And even Egyptian pharaohs had snakes in their headpieces. They believed that the pharaoh's power came from the god Ra. The spiders create panic in some people. All spiders are venomous because that's how they paralyze their prey. But almost all of them have so little venom that the bite site will just be irritated, but will not otherwise harm you. And yes, I know about the black widow and the black recluse spiders whose bites could require medical attention, but they're also rarely fatal. Unfortunately, the instinct among many of us is to kill all spiders on sight. But according to Greek myth, the first spider was Arachne. She was a very talented weaver, and people said she was even better than Athena. This angered the goddess, who challenged Arachne to a weaving contest. When Arachne's work was judged the best, Athena changed Arachne into a spider, whose descendants still weave beautiful webs. And the scientific for names is derived from Arachne in honor of her. But I think the most interesting spider is Anansi. He is a revered spider originally from Western Africa. His popularity spread to the Caribbean and southern United States, where enslaved people that knew these stories were taken. Anansi is a trickster, but also wise, and his stories served as lessons to listeners. When references to African culture was banned among the enslaved, Anansi became Aunt Nancy. And for some reason, Walt Disney changed Aunt Nancy to Uncle Remus, and stories about Brer Rabbit and others have roots in the Anansi stories. So here's one of them. This is the Reader's Digest version, because it's a very long story. But how Anansi got his stories. Once there were no stories in the world. The sky god, Yami, had them all. Anansi went to Yami and asked how much they would cost to buy. Yami said a high price. Anansi must bring back Onini the python, Osiba the leopard, and Momoro hornets, and Momocha the little person. Anansi set about capturing these. First he went to where Python lived and debated out loud whether Python was really longer than the palm branch or not, as his wife said, shorter than the palm branch. Python overheard, and when Anansi explained the debate, agreed to lie along the palm branch. Because he cannot easily make himself completely straight, a true impression of his actual length is difficult to obtain. So Python agreed to be tied to the branch. When he was completely tied, Anansi took him to Yami. To catch the leopard, Anansi dug a deep hole in the ground. When the leopard fell in the hole, Anansi offered to help him out with his webs. Once the leopard was out of the hole, though, he was bound in Anansi's webs, and he was carried away. To catch the hornets, Anansi filled a calabash with water and poured some over a banana leaf he held over his head and some over the nest, calling out that it was raining. He suggested the hornets get into the empty calabash, and when they obliged, he quickly sealed the opening. And to catch the little person, he made a doll and covered it with sticky gum. He placed the doll under the odum tree where the person played and put some yam in a bowl in front of it. When he came and ate his yam, she thanked the doll, which of course did not reply. Annoyed at its bad manners, she struck it, at first with one hand, then the other, and the hand stuck, and Anansi captured her. Anansi handed his captives over to Yami, and Yami rewarded him with the stories, which now became the Anansi stories. So does anyone here like mosquitoes? Yeah, I'm annoyed by them too. They can be annoyed during the summer, but it's only the females that bite, so only half the mosquitoes are biting you. They only need a drop of your blood to feed their babies. But still, we swat at them, spray them, and swear at them. But in some parts of Africa, there exists a secretive mosquito fraternity. They actively dissuade the killing of mosquitoes. It may be hard to understand until you see their reasoning. This is part of a larger treatise by Mwana Kantanen that explains the mosquito fraternity. Africa is a rich continent with almost unlimited natural and mineral resources, richer than any other continent. Why didn't European settled in the mass because of our God protector, mosquito, and his lethal weapon, malaria. When foreigners hear the name of our God, mosquito, a wave of wet and cold fear travels their mind and body. The mosquito's army has protected Africa from the physical occupation of its lands and foreigner settlement and possibly genocide of native Africans. Remember, there is no single place on earth where Europeans have settled during the last 5 centuries and brought to the indigenous populations peace, friendship, and prosperity. All the contrary, they always first try to exterminate the local population. Look at South Africa history. The small southern part of its land without mosquito has attracted and permitted the settlement of the Boer, who slowly crushed with apartheid the native black population and even tried to eliminate them. So they have an annual festival to celebrate the mosquito for keeping the colonists away. Part of their lore is that those that know and practice the ancient ways suffer little from mosquito-borne diseases. Only modernized Africans that reject the old ways are at risk. Letting mosquitoes have a drop of your blood is a way of repaying them for saving your culture. So bears are one of the creatures that our brain will see as a threat. After all, many of our ancestors had to fight them. But then we have teddy bears, and we think animals like pandas and koalas are cute. But a recent question was posed to women. Would you rather encounter an unknown man or a bear in the woods? As frightening as bears can be, the overwhelming majority picked the bear. Note that they were not saying they were afraid of all men, just ones they did not know personally. So if you are a woman that does encounter a bear in the woods, there's a new recommended way to protect yourself. Just yell loud as you can, "Thank God it's a bear and not a man!" Enough trolls will appear to tell you why you're wrong, and while they're arguing among themselves, you can escape and leave them for the bear. As I mentioned earlier, red is a sign of danger. Oh, we got the ants in there. A current trend of certain red hats steers fear and loathing in many of us. But not too long ago, red hats were seen as growing older gracefully, and red hat society ladies regularly had lunch. Did any of you remember those? Yeah. They're inspired by this poem called Warning by Jenny Joseph. When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me, and I shall spend my pension on prangy and summer things and satin sandals and say we have no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick the flowers of other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickle for a week, and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay our rent and not swear in the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I am old and wearing purple. And this leads to a final scary topic, growing older. Older people were told they're out of touch. They're past their prime. I'm sure at least some of us have been told, "Okay, boomer," as a way to let us know we're no longer relevant. But there are many cultures that revere age and wisdom. In many non-European people, elders are held in high esteem. Both men and women hold positions of power that are only available to those that reach a certain age. We've seen the members of the greatest generation and baby boomers redefine what it means to get older. You may remember the stereotype of grandparents sitting on rocking chairs, knitting and playing chess, or other sedentary activities while wearing sensible shoes. But today, older people are active in making changes. The largest group of people at the No Kings rallies were gray-haired people, marching and protecting democracy for a time they may not live to see. It's really inspiring. My goal today was to challenge you to look at your own biases, both good and bad, and to evaluate how you form your perceptions or perceptions of the world. My hope is that you look at another person, another situation, another thing that you dislike, and see if you can find the redeeming qualities. The path to love is not necessarily through acceptance, but through understanding.
Thank you, Charlene. A lot of my personal memories came back when you talked about scary things. As all of you know, I'm an aficionado of travel in Africa. And I'll go there anytime someone provides a plane ticket. And I'm rankled by one person's response some years ago when I talked about Africa, and he said, I think quite naively, "Aren't you scared?" I mean, it was such a nonsensical question to me. No, I love this, I love this, I have no fears. So that was quite tested by me the year that I got malaria in Sierra Leone, so bad that even 3 different hospitals could not help me, didn't have the drugs, so I got on the next plane flying that night to London and went for treatment at the world-known tropical hospital for tropical medicine. And I got cured, and I went back. But I wasn't scared either by the time, about a month later, when I got something even worse, and again had to go through hospitals. I forget what that was, but it was not nice either. But the real time I did get scared in Africa was 3 years ago in Zimbabwe, where my lodging was in the woods and on farm roads, and it was separate round huts with grass roofs. And one day I looked in my bag and there was a scorpion. And I was not happy with that and truly scared.
Okay. Good morning. When I was first married, way back in the late 1950s, my husband and I lived in British Guiana. And at the time where we lived, it was a bauxite mining town. We had a very nice house. It was built up, of course. And at one point, an anaconda became entangled in a fishing net. Of course, we all trekked out to see the anaconda, 24 feet long. The head was huge. And it just so happened that I had a trip planned to go to Georgetown, the capital, which was 60 miles up the river. There was no road. And we went by boat, a steamer, and the snake went too. And I had never seen anything so tremendous. It was so big you weren't even afraid of it, actually. I find I fear little things that creep around a lot more scary. But I'll never forget it. It was quite a
That you can go on YouTube and search for cats afraid of cucumbers. Have you ever seen cats afraid of cucumbers? So they have an innate response that they feel that cucumbers look too much like snakes. And you can put a cucumber behind a cat, and when it realizes it's there, it'll jump out of its skin. And obviously, they're not learning that.
Yeah, so that must be more of that instinctive
Yeah,
in your
definitely.
brain.
It's an instinctive thing, but we all, not just people, lots of animals have that instinctive feeling about certain other animals.
When you talk about the Day of the Dead, I think most of the fears that are in scary movies and stuff, the theme is something coming back from the dead
Yeah.
somehow. And in general, at least in our culture, they're bad. You know, ghosts are bad, Dracula's bad, Frankenstein's bad, mummies are bad. But you're right, in the Day of the Dead, they seem to celebrate the relationship with people who are dead now. I'm not a big believer in ghosts, but I think it's somewhat more positive to think about the dead. You know, well, it's definitely more positive than just fear of the beyond, fear of what happens after death. So that's a cultural advantage, I think, that they have.
Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Charlene.
Yeah.